As most of you know, I do live in the Appalachian Mountains, and there are just some unexplainable things here, just like the things in the story that I'm going to read you tonight. So grab your favorite tea and settle in, and let me tell you another scary Appalachia story, because of course, this is Tea After Midnight. Tonight's story comes from Anonymous. Hi Savannah, I've debated whether or not to send you this story because, to be completely honest, I would rather believe that this didn't happen. I've lived in Appalachia since I was 5 and I'm now 29. At the time the story took place, I lived in a very small town that really wasn't close to anything. I was out in the country about 45 minutes away from the nearest Walmart. It was usually very quiet around there, and the most we ever had go on there was the annual Christmas parade. When I was 22, I got married, and my then husband and I bought a home that needed a lot of work. We spent a lot of time on this house because we wanted it to be our forever home. But fast forward to last year, he and I separated, and he moved back to Ohio with his parents. We sold the house because I couldn't afford to keep it on my own, but I did find a double wide for rent that I could afford. The only drawback was it was in the woods, completely away from anyone and anything. Like I said, the nearest store to me was 45 minutes away. When I moved in, I immediately could feel a heaviness, almost as if whatever was in that house did not want me to be there. The house sat vacant for a few years before I moved in, so it had a musty smell to it that wouldn't go away. So the first night, I lifted the windows to try and air it out a little in there. I really didn't think about where I was or what was outside when I did this. I just wanted the smell to go away. After I lifted the windows, I kept unpacking and putting things away, not really paying attention to much else. I was standing in the kitchen putting some plates in the cabinet when I heard a faint scratching sound. I turned around to face the sound to try and figure out what was making that noise. As soon as I turned around, the back door of the house flew open and slammed shut. From where I was standing, the back door was about 5 feet away from me. This made me drop the plates I was holding, and they shattered all over the floor. I ran over to the door and locked it immediately, and then went back and shut and locked every single door and window in the house. When I got back to the kitchen, I knelt down to start picking up the glass, and it hit me. I double-checked that I locked both the front and back door before I started unpacking. So that means that somehow the door unlocked itself and flew open and slammed shut. I was thoroughly freaked out at this point, so I picked up the glass and went to bed. I didn't sleep a wink that night because I was by myself in a new environment and had the craziest situation happen earlier. When I got up the next day, I decided to take a day off from unpacking and go see my best friend who lived about an hour away from me. When I showed up to her house, she was outside waiting on me because she could tell something was wrong when I was on the phone with her earlier. I told her about the encounter that I had had the night before, and she told me that I could stay with her until I found somewhere else to go if I wanted to. I told her that was so sweet of her to offer, but that I was going to get some cameras for the house to try to put my mind at ease. When I left her house, I stopped at Walmart and got some basic cameras to put around the house. I set them up as soon as I got home, but no matter what I did, I couldn't get the cameras to work. I tried everything I knew and even called the customer service line of the company who made the cameras. They told me that more than likely I had gotten a set of cameras that were returned. They told me to return them back to the store and get a new set. So the next day I went back to the store and swapped out the cameras. I went straight home and tried to set them up, but the same issues I had the first time kept happening. At this point, I just figured that whatever was in the house did not want to be watched. After a few weeks of living in the house, nothing else really happened until one night. I had just gotten done cooking dinner and I needed to take the trash out. I am someone that doesn't like to let things sit and wait until the next day, so I thought I would just run out and put the trash in the bin outside. As I was walking down the steps, I got this feeling that I should turn around and go back inside, and boy do I wish I would have listened to that feeling. I shrugged it off and put the trash in the bin, and when I closed the lid to the trash can, I heard a twig snap in the wood line next to my house. I tried to tell myself that it was just an animal, but I would only be half correct. When my eyes focused on the wood line, I saw a tall, dark figure with what looked like an animal skull with antlers. This figure stood at least 7 foot tall. I ran screaming back into the house, shut and locked all the doors, and called my best friend. I told her what I saw, and she said not to move, that she would come over and get me. I felt so bad because it was so late at night and that she would have to get out and drive all that way just to get me. I sat in my closet with her on the phone the entire time it took her to get to my house. When she pulled up, she got silent. I kept calling her name, asking if she was okay, but she wouldn't respond. After a few minutes of me calling her name, she finally said something, and what she said still sends shivers down my spine. She said, "You're gonna have to climb out the window." I said, "Why?" She said that she could see at least 5 tall figures with the same animal skull with antlers standing around the house. I told her there was no way that I was going to climb out the window, and she told me that it looked like there'd be no other way out because the figures were not at my bedroom window, and that I could climb out the window and be right next to her car. It took everything in my power to get the courage to come out of my closet and open that window. I tried to be as quiet as I could, and I climbed out. Luckily, it wasn't too far of a drop, and as soon as I hit the ground, I sprinted to her car and jumped in. As she was backing up, her headlights were pointed at the house, and I could see a few of the figures just standing there around the house. They were staring at the windows and doors, but not once did they turn around and look at us as we were leaving. She took me back to her house and told me that I was going to stay with her and her husband until I found somewhere else to go that wasn't in the middle of nowhere. And after what I had seen, I didn't argue with her. The next day, she sent her husband and her brother over to my house to grab my things. I called the owner of the house and told them that I would have to break my lease, and honestly, I think they knew something was going on because they told me I wouldn't have to pay the rest of the lease. Honestly, I still have questions myself. If I locked that door that night, how did it get unlocked and fly open the way it did? And also, what were those figures and creatures that were standing around my house? But the biggest question I have is why didn't they turn around as we were leaving? Because I know they saw us. I stayed with my best friend for about 2 months until I found something that was closer to her. I've been in this house for about 4 months and I couldn't be happier. The location is much better and I'm closer to my friends now. I'm still located in the Appalachian Mountains, but I don't have the feeling of dread and uneasiness like I did when I lived at the other house. I've learned to listen to my gut feelings and to never ever go outside again at night. You guys, this story freaked me out so bad. Because not only were they going through a really hard time in life, but to move into a house by yourself and knowing you're in the middle of nowhere by yourself, so far from anything, I couldn't imagine that. But then to also have paranormal and supernatural encounters on top of that, that is crazy. Like being there by yourself on the very first night and the door opens and slams shut when you know you locked it. But then you try to get some cameras to set it up to try to make yourself feel a little better, and the cameras won't work. You tried 2 different sets and they just won't work. But I need to talk about what you saw outside. Because what do you mean you saw a 7-foot shadow figure with an animal skull as a head that has antlers? That is actually terrifying. If anybody in the comments knows what that could be, please let me know, because I've done a little bit of research. I think I know what it could be. I'm not going to say it on here, but if you guys have any idea or know exactly what this was, please let me know in the comments. But not only one, but the best friend counted at least 5, and that was just the front and probably the side of the house that they could physically see. So who knows how many others were on the other side. That is terrifying. I've got goosebumps. Whoa. I do want to say that I'm so glad that you're not in that house anymore, and shout out to your best friend because they really came in clutch, coming and getting you, and also seeing those figures as well, but telling you to move in with her so you didn't have to be by yourself. A1 friend right there. And like I said, living in the Appalachian Mountains, unexplainable things happen here all the time. I've heard and seen countless things, and it's just hard to explain them away and try to debunk them. But a situation like that, I wouldn't even know where to start with an explanation. So I'm turning to you guys. If you guys have any ideas, please let us know. But that does conclude this episode of Tea After Midnight. If you have any personal scary stories of your own, it doesn't have to be about the Appalachian Mountains, but I would love to read it. You can email me at the email on the screen or the email in the caption of this video. But as always, you guys, thank you so much for watching. Truly, I love you so much. Hope you have the best night, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.
Hello and welcome back to a series of spooky stories. The Haunted Tea Spill. This series is brought to you by all things spooky and ungodly amounts of paranormal activity. Featuring the first initial necklace I ever got. It comes in a 2-pack. I only have the one because I don't know where the other one is right now. I've been moving. They're really cute stacked. They also come in silver. It's down here if you want it. Now on to the story. I think someone or something is haunting me. Better take care of that. I moved into my new place maybe a year ago, and ever since I got here, weird things have been happening. I'd hear people walking and talking, and dogs barking. I have a dog, but she wasn't the one barking. Maybe it was the neighbors, I thought, but then when I'd look out, it would go silent. One day, I told my mother-in-law what was happening. Out of nowhere, she pulled out an egg and started praying in Spanish. Think I know where this is going. My skin started burning so bad, and I got dizzy. Wasn't expecting that part, not gonna lie. The egg came out all webbed and darker than a usual egg. She said we needed to start going to church. After the prayer, things got worse. I would hear my husband calling me from the bathroom, but once I turned the corner, the bathroom light was off and the door was cracked open. I'd call his name and he'd be in a whole other room saying, yes, what happened? I'd freeze and just run to him and tell him what happened. That's when he'd tell me it happened to him also. My nightmares also got worse. I had one where my mother-in-law was standing at the door watching over our baby with just nothing in her eye holes. Damn, none of y'all told me I got chicken in my teeth? Ugh, fake. No eyes, just full darkness. The next day, my husband told me about a neighbor who kept seeing a deceased boy with just black holes where his eyes should be, and that they were moving out. See, they're smart. They're smart. I like them. I told him about my dream, and he went quiet. We changed the conversation and haven't spoke about it since. Why the fuck not? That sounds like a pretty important conversation. Your neighbors are having the same experience. And they're skedaddling because of it? And no... Oh. Got it. One day I was home alone and our baby was sleeping and I heard a door open and shut. At first I thought maybe my husband's home from work, so then I went and looked for him. I saw a woman just standing there staring at the kitchen wall. I don't know why it just zoomed in. That was weird. Then I heard my baby start laughing. Oh. Oh. Nothing worse than hearing a baby laughing after you just saw a ghost. You know? A true terrifying experience. I ran in and I just see the baby staring at the wall. I picked baby up confused and looked around like, what were they laughing about? I chopped it up to baby just hearing things until I heard a laugh. You chopped it up to baby just hearing things after you just saw a fucking ghost? Come on. It was like an older woman's laugh. Like the one that you saw in the kitchen, just staring at the wall. The last straw was when I started getting angry at everything, which isn't like me at all. I started having bruises and scratches appear all over me, not knowing how they got there. Bad thoughts filled my head, and something kept saying they're watching over and over again in my head. I finally started going to church again, and once I got there, this woman just stopped talking and looked at me. It wasn't scared, but like a pity stare. How could she have known? It was my first day there. The whole service, she was just giving me this pity but cautious look. I went home feeling calmer and more like myself until it was 2:30 a.m. and I went to the kitchen and my mother-in-law was standing there staring at the wall. She was whispering and just talking to herself in Spanish. She kept saying, "Don't do it," over and over again. Don't do what? Don't do what? Be specific. I went to the room and told my husband and he got up, but she was gone once we got there. We went to her room and she was sleeping. I was so confused. To this day, things happen. I don't know who or what could be haunting me, but my husband says there's been something here since he was little. I don't know what to do but push through and ignore it. My baby sees it and reacts to it. You're actually insane if you just think that you can push through and ignore it. Whenever your mother-in-law cracked an egg and there was darkness and webbing and your skin was burning whenever she was praying over you. You're just gonna ignore that? Okay. We could start with calling someone. I feel like that would be a good first option. Because who the fuck wants to live like this? Truly. That's terrifying. Rated on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the least scary, creepy, spooky, 10 being the most. If you have a story that you want to submit, you can do so on the link tree in my profile. I will see y'all at the next episode. Stay spooky, friends.
Let's talk about witchcraft in Romania and how it backfired. This is an allegedly true spooky scary storytime submission submitted by someone named A. And if you followed this series for a while, you may remember A's name from submitting the story about witnessing an exorcism in Romania. And I've gone back and forth with A. She's incredibly sweet, and she's self-described as a 42-year-old Romanian mother. She's an animal lover, and she's an Orthodox Christian. And when I shared her previous story, so many people reached out and they were like, oh my gosh, does she have any more stories? Here you go. She's actually the first double submission to Spooky Scary Storytime as someone who has submitted more than one story. And before I get into the story, she started her email off with a warning, and she says she highly encourages anyone who hears this to not mock, play with, test these things. Not to embrace any of the practices that she mentions, because once you open a door, you may not be prepared for the dark forces that come through. She's sharing this for educational purposes. And so she says that witches have existed in Romania since always. They are sort of an alternative to the church. People may go to witches for what they feel the church can't solve. Whatever problem the church couldn't solve through prayer, the witch promised to provide for a price. And every village had a witch known as a baba. And the babas could do a number of things. They could help cleanse your house of bad spirits. They could help you find love. They could break up families. They could help you steal someone's husband or wife. They could help you predict your future. They could make someone sick. They could help you untie family curses. They could tell you who your enemies were and who had cursed you. They could make someone sick with madness. They could help you steal household fortunes. They could even mark someone for death. So it's safe to say they could do a number of things, both good and bad. But A says she wonders, isn't it bad to force destiny to obtain something that you were never meant to obtain? Says many of the babas are older women that share physical similarities, like a white or missing eye. Many of them have a missing leg or finger. Some walk with a limp. Others have fish-like skin. And these babas are considered marked, but there are other normal-looking babas as well. Families who have lost someone are often wary of babas at funerals, because babas can often be found after a service pretending to clean up when really they're collecting the hair and nails of the deceased. Use these items for powerful spells and rituals involving curses of sickness and death, and you can often find them performing these rituals in the middle of the night between the hours of midnight and 3 a.m. In forests near large bodies of water. If you happen to be out at that hour, it's not uncommon to find one, and they'll often be surrounded by candlelight and whispering to someone or something invisible. But if you see one, you better keep it moving, because it's known that they don't like to be spied on. If you ask a baba to help you, they often don't like to be paid in money. They would rather you give them fine jewelry, your watches, or something a little bit more personal. And there's sort of a rumor that they used to ask for your firstborn child. This was thought to be because they often didn't have children of their own, and so no descendants to either act as a servant or to pass on their spiritual knowledge to. This practice of asking for children is sort of outdated, but it does concern the story that A shared. And there was a woman in her village she calls Laura, and Laura was very in love with her husband, but her husband unfortunately left her for another woman in the village she calls Denise. Begging, pleading, and crying didn't work, but desperate to bring him back, Laura decided to go to the village baba to ask for her help. And she explains the situation, and the baba tells her to bring her 3 items of her husband's, including, if possible, worn underwear, a strand of hair, and his used pillow. And A says, side note, the reason that they often ask for a physical thing like a strand of hair or a nail is because these things contain someone's vital life force. And if you have that in your possession, vital life force can be manipulated. So she brings these things back, and the baba asks her, okay, what do you really want? Do you want your husband back, or do you want Denise to be punished? And Laura says, I want him to leave Denise and to come back to me and to see me as the most beautiful woman in the world. And I want him to see Denise as the ugliest woman in the world. The baba says, okay, done. What will you pay me for my services? And Laura says, well, I can pay you extremely well. And the baba shakes her head and she says, no, I don't want money. And Laura says, well, what do you want then? And the baba thinks for a minute and she says, are you willing to give up your ability to have a child? And Laura thinks about it and she says, yes, I am. I'm fine with not having any children. I just want my husband back. Baba had Laura spit in a glass bottle, and the deal was made. And after 3 days, her husband did come back, and he apologized profusely, and he said, I have no idea why I left my beautiful wife Laura for the ugly Denise. I'm so sorry. Please take me back. Laura, of course, wanted this, and so she happily took him back, and for a few months everything was perfect, and she could not believe that the spell worked. But a few months later, they were walking through the village when they see an extremely pregnant Denise. Her husband immediately recoils in disgust. He's like, I cannot believe I even thought to go for her. I am so unattracted to her. Thank you for taking me back. I love you so much. Laura was shocked, and she could not believe that she was pregnant, and she immediately was like, this is my husband's baby. So she storms up to Denise, and she goes, whose baby is that? Denise laughed in her face and said, it's okay, dear, you can keep your husband. I already got what I wanted. Laura later found out that Denise had gone to the village baba long before Laura ever had, because Denise couldn't have children. And apparently the ability to have children was passed from Laura to Denise through Laura going to the village baba. A says this is a very real story from her village with real people, and she says this is a prime example of why you shouldn't mess with fate or with destiny, and what's meant to be yours will be yours. His name has been kept out of the story, but she will be seeing the comments. Let her know if you have thoughts. And if you have a spooky, scary story you think nobody would believe, please send it in. We would love to hear it.
Spooky, scary story time. I know I've been MIA, had a little health issues, and then I was planning my daughter's sweet 16. With that said, let me share a scary story with you. Joy was sent in by Darlene, and she says, I live in a townhouse in Orange, California, with my family. My husband and I have experienced several things, individually and together, paranormal.
When neither of us would be home alone, when you were downstairs, you would hear footsteps in our bedroom. When we would go check upstairs, it would stop. But when walking into my room, it would feel eerie. And then you'd hear our bed creak as if someone sat down, but saw nothing. Another incident, my husband was downstairs watching TV, and I was asleep upstairs in our room when I was jolted awake from my husband, who looked white as a ghost. He asked if I was in the kids' room a minute ago. I said no, why? He told me he was in the bathroom in our kids' room when our cat Rocky was putting his paws playfully under the door. Then, my husband saw that it looked like Rocky got pulled away from the door. Then he heard as if someone squeezed him. When he opened the door, he thought he would have saw him. But no one was there, and our kids were not home at the time. The one we experienced together, we were having takeout in the living room, sitting on our sofa, when we noticed a tall, dark shadow from one corner of the room past our fireplace and toward our sliding doors, where the blinds moved, as if someone ran through them. We both got the chills and asked each other if we saw that. Darlene did mention that she has more paranormal stories. I can't wait to hear them. And I'll be sharing them with y'all.
So, I'm going to fly us to Malaysia. Ever heard of the Pontianak? It's the Malaysian version of the classic Asian female ghost. Long black hair, wide open eyes, pale face, white robes, wandering through the darkness, seeking vengeance upon those who wronged her. You've seen it 1,000 times in all those Asian horror movies. Except that it's nothing like that. Nothing. I live with the damn knowledge of this. The Pontianak is misery brought to horrific form. She's a lost woman, damned and dead from childbirth. Her hair is not long and flowing as pictured in countless movies. It's grey and stringy. Her eyes reveal a broken soul, cruelly shattered. She is the unspeakable sadness of a parent losing a child. The wretchedness of being lonely, unloved, and lost. She's not ominous and silent as we've been led to believe by terrible Asian movies. If you listen carefully on a dark, rainy night, and if you smell the faint smell of jasmine in the air, you can hear her weep and sob and murmur. Perhaps you may feel pity for this forlorn creature. Perhaps all she needs was a person to reach out to her, but there are ancient reasons that we keep away from madness, however inhuman it may seem. I'm going to tell you what I saw in the tiny town of Lingi, Negeri Sembilan, some years ago. I will tell you what I saw and heard, and how I still question if it were true. I have family in Lingi. I cannot remember how we were related, except that everyone was old and grey. My brother and I came to visit them for the holidays. For a city kid, it was quite the culture shock. The coolness of the air, the constant cooing of birds and shrieking of monkeys, the abundance of greenery and the almost alien dialect of the locals. There was nothing to do really besides wandering through the woods or visiting the local marketplace. The house we stayed in was old and traditional, wooden and on stilts. I used to peek through the wooden floorboards in the ground below, dreading that I'd see something rush underneath, gibbering horribly. Our relatives forbade us from leaving the house at night. They told us that ghosts wandered the town at night and they'd take us away if we strayed outside the house. Classic story, we've all heard it before, but here's where things got a little strange.
Yeah, let's get strange.
My grand aunt would leave the leftovers of dinner on a banana leaf outside the back door. I asked her if it was for the dogs, but she shook her head and refused to answer me further. The back door was bolted shut then with a large parang machete hanging next to it. I spent a few nights waiting outside that door, hoping to hear whatever it was that came to the door to eat the leftover food, but I heard and saw nothing. But the food was always gone in the morning. One night, something terrible happened. It was dark. The lack of street lights meant that the moon cast an eerie twilight over the town, turning everything into a black and white picture. There was a clanging of bells as the local madman gleefully rang the nearby temple bell again and again and again. A woman had come to our house. She was from out of town and looked flustered and tired. She and her husband were driving on the highway near the town and the car broke down. The roads are dark and lonely and there's nothing but jungle around, and the closest thing to civilization would be nearby Lingi. Her husband was waiting at the car, she said. She had come to look for a mechanic or tow truck to follow her back. This was when my relatives' faces turned deathly pale. Immediately, they gathered the rest of the nearby locals. Children were woken up, dinners interrupted, radios shut off. All able men gathered with machetes and bamboo sticks. An old Malay man told the confused lady that she had done something terrible by leaving her husband alone in the dark, lonely road. They all needed to travel together to find him. Being a teenager, I was allowed to follow. I kept asking my relatives what was going on as we marched through the dark, muddy path, but they told me to remain silent. I had an ominous feeling that we were about to see something really bad, and I think a lot of the men felt the same. We knew we were getting closer because we could see the distant glow of headlights. As we stepped out of the jungle path, finally on a road illuminated by a single lamp, we saw the stalled car. And when we saw what was next to it, the men stopped dead on their tracks.
What was it?
The woman's husband was lying lifeless on the road, the street lamp a spotlight on him. Sitting on his chest, I thought at first it was a wizened monkey in a white baju kurung with long scraggly hair.
Oh, wow.
It was when the creature looked up, I realised it was a woman. Her face was a frozen expression of misery and horror. Her mouth was bloody, as was the man's neck. The wife began to scream. The men, frozen in horror, said nothing. I felt a horrible nausea. The creature plunged its ancient face into the husband's neck.
Oh, God.
And continued feeding. It was then that the old Malay man whipped out a Quran and began reading verses from it. I can't recall exactly what he was saying as I was fixated at the sight of the Pontianak chewing and munching and licking. His chant seemed to work. As the creature stopped and looked up at him, it seemed to be saying something, almost pleading. Its eyes begged him to stop. I realized that I was crying, out of a mix of fear and misery and repulsion. The creature then slinked back into the darkness of the jungle, looking back desolately at us. The rest of the night was a blur of ambulance and police lights. People whispered strange things to each other, heads shaking sadly. One of our relatives drove us back home. A silent 2-hour journey. That's what I saw in Lingi. I said earlier that I questioned if it was real. Did I really see the feared Pontianak of legend? Or did I see a sad, shunned madwoman living in the jungle? Maybe both. Sometimes, at night, I dream of sitting next to the back door, waiting for something to come and eat the leftover food. And the door creaks open, and there's a horrible sound of chomping and gurgling as I peek from my corner, and I see a wrinkled grey-haired creature squatting, staring at me as it slowly chews on chicken.
If I'm going to be scared, you are going to be scared with me. I am Autumn in Appalachia, and it is time for another spooky follower story. Send me your spooky stories, add me on Facebook, and subscribe on YouTube. Same handle, without further ado. I'm telling you, y'all are not ready for these two. They gave me chills. So, Beverly said that she believes she has some mimic activity going on, potentially something following her, because this has happened at 2 different houses. So, the first story, she lived in a house with her mom, her grandma, and her, at this time, 1 or 2 year old daughter. Now, one night, Beverly is putting her daughter to bed, and she has a friend, Crystal, that's spending the night that night, but Crystal actually leaves Beverly's house while Beverly is putting her daughter to bed because Crystal wants to go see another friend nearby. So Beverly is laying in the bedroom, her daughter is like almost asleep, and then Beverly hears the door open. And she turns over to see Crystal walk into this dark bedroom. She sits at the computer chair at the end of the bed and is sitting there in complete silence. So Beverly quietly whispers, "Hey," and Crystal doesn't respond. Beverly then turns over, sees that her daughter is actually asleep, and before she even turns back around, she's like, "Okay, come on, Crystal." And she still doesn't get a response from Crystal. When she turns back around, she does not see anybody sitting in the room. She flips the light on for just a second. There is nobody there. Crystal was not home yet. And she, to this day, does not know how to explain it, but it absolutely chilled her to the bone. Now let's fast forward in time a bit. Beverly ends up moving. It's all the same people living in a new house. Grandma, mom, Beverly, daughter, and now it's Beverly's boyfriend too. So one night, it's like 1 in the morning, Beverly and her boyfriend get in an argument, and so Beverly decides she's going to sleep in her mom's room by herself. Her mom's not sleeping in there because mom, grandma, and daughter are kind of having like a little movie night, like sleepover in the living room. So Beverly is in the mom's room, in the bed by herself, lights are off, and she finally gets to the point where she's like half asleep. And she did clarify she's not fully asleep. She's just kind of in the in-between. She suddenly is kind of jolted awake a little bit by feeling somebody lay on the bed behind her, and then she feels a body press up against hers. This person starts rubbing her hair, and they whisper, "You're alone. You're sleeping alone." And it sounds just like her boyfriend's voice, and she, before she even heard the voice, assumed it was her boyfriend anyway. So this is a weird thing to say, right? She turns over to face her boyfriend. Nobody is in the room. She said she just about pissed herself. All the hair on the back of her neck stood up. She gets up, she bolts out of the room, and she gave me a little bit of history about this new house that they moved into. She said there is a lot of activity that goes on, not just that, which I think is creepy enough, but she said, and I'm going to be careful with my wording, that previously a substance dealer used to live in this house, and that he actually passed away in that bedroom, and that one of his customers passed away in the backyard. And I don't know what, like, all kinds of other paranormal activities she's got going on there, but I think from the context in which she wrote her message that they still live there actively. Y'all let me know what you think in the comments. That is so creepy. It reminds me a lot of one of my past experiences, like from years ago. Y'all stay tuned for the next story.
There's a series of hidden tunnels, which they call the Shanghai tunnels. And they call them that because in the 1800s, these tunnels were used to Shanghai people. And for many years, they offered tours and there was some access to these specific tunnels. But about 10 to 15 years ago, they started limiting who could go down there. And now these things are almost kept a secret. Not a lot of people know how to actually get down to the Portland Underground or the Shanghai tunnels. So what is going on down there? What are they trying to hide? There are some people who speculate there is a race of reptilians that live underground underneath the city of Portland. Now, there was this man named Jay. Jay lived in Portland for about 5 years, and during this time, he was homeless, living on the streets. Well, he said one day he was sitting on the sidewalk when this man approached him. He was dressed in this business suit, and he looked like he was very wealthy. The man comes up to him, introduces him, and says, my name is Antonio. And he starts talking to him about him living on the streets. Well, they talk for a good hour. And finally, this man says to him, there are these tunnels underground. They call them the Shanghai tunnels. But we're having a party there tonight. And if you want to go, you can be my guest. But you have to want to go. And so Jay was like, thank you, but that's not really my thing. And the guy goes, well, come on, man, come to the party. Like, there'll be food there and potentially people you can meet. Maybe you can find a job. And he's like, you know what? No, that's all right. That's not my thing. I'm not interested. And so Antonio's like, well, before I go, here's a couple bottles of water and here's, a couple health bars you can eat. So he's like, thank you, I appreciate that. And he takes them. Well, he started to get hungry and thirsty, so he chugs down one of the waters and he eats one of these like granola health bars. After about 5 minutes, he starts feeling really tired. So he sits up against this dumpster, and within seconds, he was asleep. He said the next thing he knows, he's opening his eyes, and it was just completely dark. And he had no idea, like, what had just happened. So he flips on his lighter, and as he kind of looks around, he could tell he was in some kind of tunnel system. And he gets up, he starts looking for, a way out, but he had no idea where he was. And he starts yelling, like, help, help me. But then down one of the hallways, he sees a light. So he walks closer to the light, and it starts getting bigger and bigger. That's when he could see the outline of a person. It was Antonio. And Antonio's like, hey, over here. And he's like, man, what's going on? Like, how did I get down here? Like, what is this? He's like, we're in the Shanghai tunnels. And he said, you were at the party with me. You must have had too much fun because you took off and you ran into the tunnels. And he's like, no. I wasn't at any party. You must have done something to me and brought me down here. And he's like, no, man. He said, you've had too much fun at the party. Now let's come back and let's go to the party. And he's like, no, I don't want to go to the party. I want to get out of these tunnels. And he's like, listen, we need to go back to the party because you can only go there if you want. If you want to go to the party, I can't make you go. And he's like, okay, that's weird. So Antonio says, just come with me for 10 minutes, and if you don't like it, I'll take you back out of the tunnels. So Jay's like, okay, whatever. So he starts following Antonio down these corridors of different tunnels, and it's almost like a maze. As they pass down this one hallway, he said the light from Antonio's flashlight reflected on something shiny. And he could see Antonio's shadow on the ground. Except it wasn't human. He said it looked like some sort of lizard, dragon type creature. So instantly Jay's like, okay, this is a bad situation. He turns and he takes off running. And as he's running through these corridors, he can hear Antonio behind him yelling, come back, come to the party, come on. And every, few steps, he's, flipping open his lighter so he can see. Well, finally, he flips open his lighter and he turns around and there's Antonio. Except he doesn't look like Antonio anymore. He looks like this reptilian-like creature. And he's staring right at Jay. So Jay's like, look, man, what are you? You're not human. And he's like, what are you talking about? I am human. Like, you've had too much fun at the party, man. You just need to come back and chill out. Just then, Jay sees some light off in the distance. And he thinks, that's my opportunity to get out of here. So he runs towards the light, and sure enough, he finds this hole. And he gets up there, and he crawls out, and he finds himself in a back alley. And as he looks back down at the hole, he can see Antonio peering his head through and hissing at him. So Jay took off. That night, he left town, and he said there is something definitely in the tunnels underneath Portland. Does Bigfoot have some sort of supernatural abilities? Now, there was this man named Cal. Cal lived in West Virginia, and he said when he was younger, he would go over to his grandmother's house, who lived up against this huge forest. He said one day, him and his grandmother, they're playing in the backyard, when all of a sudden, his grandmother got a phone call. So he stays outside, and he continues to play, when he starts hearing the sound of branches breaking. And as he turns around and he looks into the woods, he sees this tall, hairy, man-like creature standing, staring straight at him. He said this creature reached out his hand. And the next thing Cal remembers, he's walking towards this creature and grabbing his hand and holding on to it. This creature then proceeds to lead him into the forest. And after about 10 minutes of walking, they arrive at sort of this brush-like structure. It looked like some kind of den. And then this creature takes Cal and it brings him inside. He said there were 3 more of these creatures, looked exactly the same, covered in hair. Well, they stayed for about 15, 20 minutes, and then this creature grabbed Cal's hand again and took him back to his grandmother's backyard. And when he comes out of the woods, he sees his grandmother. She's screaming. She runs over to him. She grabs him and picks him up. She's like, where were you? You've been missing for like hours. I've been searching all over for you. Like, what happened to you? And he says, well, Grandma, you know, I seen this hairy man, and he had friends, and he took me into the woods. And his grandmother responds like, that's ridiculous. That's, you know, you gave me a scare. Don't ever do that again. Well, many years passed, and he said one day he was talking to his mother, and they recalled this story from when he was younger about having that experience at his grandmother's. And his mom said, you know, it was the weirdest thing because a couple months after that, we took you to the zoo for the first time. And when we went in this ape enclosure, you looked at the gorillas and you said, Mommy, that is what I seen in Grandma's backyard. The other day, we had a Mothman sighting in Chicago, Illinois. Now, this takes place outside of Hoffman Estates on Shoe Factory Road. Now, there were 3 witnesses who said they were driving about 10:30 p.m. down Shoe Factory Road, headed west. Now, they had got to this spot where they said it was pretty much a wooded area, and it was some sort of forest preserve. As they're driving down the highway, they began to notice some sort of large object flying over their vehicle. Now, they didn't see it, but they seen some sort of shadow moving along the road. They said it then went into the woods, and then it came back out and went right over their vehicle again. They were kind of trying to look up, see what this thing was. They couldn't make any identification. So the third time this thing passed by, but as it passed by the vehicle, they hear a loud thump on top of the vehicle. So they pull over to the side of the road thinking they hit something. They get out of the car and they start to look around. They didn't see nothing, but they began to hear a screeching sound, and it was coming from the woods. That's when they all 3 looked over and seen a very large figure with red eyes staring at them from the woods. They jumped in the vehicle and got out of there. Now, it's interesting that this sighting just happened a night ago because just last week, there was another report on Lake Michigan near the Navy Pier. A witness reported seeing something flying over the lake, very low height, and they said it had bright red eyes. It then took off towards Indiana over the lake. And we've seen an increase in Mothman sightings in the past couple of months. Usually, right, Mothman is sort of this omen of doom. So is there something bad getting ready to happen in Chicago? Most terrifying thing in the woods are humans. You know, when you go out into the woods, sometimes you will encounter people who are up to no good. You will run into marinara farms. You will run into unalivers. You will run into feral people. Believe it or not, the hills have eyes, deliverance, all of that stuff really does happen deep in the woods, out in the desert, right? Now, there was this man named Ron. Ron was from West Virginia. And he said one weekend, him and his buddies decided they were going to do some dispersed camping up in the George Washington National Forest. So he said him and his friends, they packed up their car and they headed out. Well, as they get closer to George Washington National Forest, he said they were driving down this road that was basically just cut through really thick forest. And as he's driving, he notices this car started to follow him. And at the time, Ron thinks, oh, this must be a police officer. So he pulls his vehicle over to the side of the road. And sure enough, this car pulls over to the side of the road. And he said this guy got out of the car. He had this nice button-up dress shirt, had these black dress pants on, and these cowboy boots. And he said this guy just walked to the driver's side window. So Ron rolled down his window, and this guy said, "Where are y'all headed off to?" And he goes on to say, "Well, we're going camping up here in George Washington National Forest." And the guy goes, "Oh, okay. Well, where at up here?" And he goes, "Well, about 10 miles up and, close to this area." The guy goes, I need you to be more exact. I want you to tell me exactly where you are camping at, the exact spot." So he proceeds to tell him the exact location. And then this guy looks at him and says, "Well, that's very deep in the woods, and a lot of people go missing in that area. And if something were to happen to you, there would be no one to rescue you." And Ron's just kind of like, yeah, we know that. And he goes, "Okay, well, you all be safe now." And he taps the side of the car, and he walks away. And he gets back in his car, and he drives off. So Ron was kind of like, okay, that's weird. What was all that about? They forget about it, and they finally make it to their campsite. Well, that night, it rained, it was hot, it was humid, and there were lots of bugs. So in the middle of the night, Ron and his friends decide, we're going to abandon the campsite, and we're just going to sleep in our cars tonight. So they go back to the car, and they end up getting situated. And Ron remembers, wait a second, I forgot my phone in the tent. So he asks his friends, will you guys come back with me so I get my phone? And none of them wanted to go. So he sets off on his own, and he heads back to this campsite. As he's walking through the woods, and it gets really close to where he could kind of see the campsite off in the distance, he sees a set of lights. And he notices there are 3 men walking around the tents. So he moves up a little closer to get a better view. And he can see one of the guys is the same guy that pulled him over in the car. And they have these big, garbage bags with them. He said he then watched them grab stuff out of the garbage bag and start throwing it on top of the tents. And he couldn't figure out what they were doing, but he knew something was off. And all of a sudden, he takes a step backwards, he breaks a branch, and instantly these 3 men are alerted to him. So he takes off running, he runs all the way back to his car, and he tells his friends, just get out of there. And they end up leaving, and everything is fine. But in his mind, he couldn't help but think, how many other people went camping, and this guy stopped him, and maybe something happened to him.
I used to work the night shift at a grocery store, and every single employee was warned about the woman in aisle 9. I was 19 at the time, and I worked at a grocery store. It was a very small town. Typically, everybody knew everybody. It was my first day on the job, and one of my coworkers told me, "Hey, if you see this woman in aisle 9 after closing time, don't talk to her." I just kind of looked at him like, okay, kind of weird, whatever. And he reiterated, he said, "No, seriously, don't talk to her, ignore her if she needs something." Super weird, should have been my first red flag. The next couple of weeks go by, nothing weird happens, everything is normal, until one night comes and I'm doing returns after closing time. The store is completely empty except for me and my supervisor who's in the back office. So I'm putting items away until I notice somebody standing in aisle 9. And it is a woman. She has very long dark hair, and she's just standing there still. At first I just assumed maybe somebody got locked in while we were closing, so I started to walk closer, and then I remembered what my coworker said, and the closer I got, the worse I felt. And I noticed that she wasn't shopping around, she wasn't looking at products, she literally was just standing there still, facing the shelves. So I stopped where I was a few feet away and I just said, "Ma'am, can I help you with something?" Even though my coworker told me not to, it still just kind of came out. And she turned towards me and I felt so sick. I don't know what happened, but just the aura, I felt so sick looking at her. And her face was completely blank. There wasn't a smile. She wasn't really moving. And then words came out of her mouth. She said, "Can you help me find my son?" I didn't answer her. I don't know why. I just felt like I wasn't supposed to answer her. And then she said it again. She said, "Can you help me find my son?" And so I backed up and I ran straight to the back office where my supervisor was. And I told him that there was somebody still in the store. And before I could even finish my sentence, he immediately stood up and he locked the office door. It was like he already knew, and we literally sat in there for 20 minutes. Eventually he checked the cameras and there was nobody standing in the aisle anymore. And so he unlocked it, we went home. The next morning came around and I asked my coworker about it. And they told me apparently years before I even started working there, a little boy went missing in that store, and I guess the mom searched for hours before the police were even called or showed up or whatever it was, and they never found him in the store. They never found him anywhere. And according to the employees who have worked there the longest, they say that the mother still comes and looks for him late at night.
I got stuck in an empty mall for 4 hours. Security footage says I was only gone for 11 minutes. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Candlelit Whispers with Amanda. Today we have an interesting story submitted by a listener about a liminal space. This happened when I was 19. I was working seasonal retail at a mall in North Carolina during Christmas. It was one of those huge older malls that kind of always felt off. Too quiet, too much empty space, too bright, even at night. One night I was closing with 2 other people. Around 9:15, my manager asked me to run a deposit envelope to the back office near the food court. No big deal. It was done 100 of times. The mall was technically closed, but employees were still finishing up everywhere. Lights were on, music was playing softly through the speakers, normal. I dropped off the envelope and started walking back. That's when I realized something was wrong. The music had stopped completely. No background noises, no store gates rattling, no cleaning crews. Nothing. The whole mall was dead silent. I figured everyone had just finished closing and left. But then I passed the food court and every chair was perfectly pushed in. Every light was on, but there wasn't a single person anywhere. No security, no employees, no customers, nothing. That's when I felt uneasy, so I started walking faster towards the store. But the hallway looked longer, not dramatically, just enough to feel off. It felt like the hallway should have ended already. I kept walking and walking, same stores, same bench, same fake plant by the pretzel place, and I thought I was panicking. Until I passed the exact same spilled soda cup sitting by the trash can, still tipped over, still a puddle. That's when I stopped, and I heard footsteps behind me. Slow. Not running, not walking. I turned around. No one was there. But the footsteps kept coming, getting closer, echoing through the empty mall. I started speed walking, and the footsteps matched me. Faster, closer, and I broke into a run. And so did they. I could hear them right behind me, close enough that I expected to feel someone grab my shoulder. Then I saw my store. Lights on, manager inside, completely normal. I sprinted for it and slammed into the gate, and the second I touched it, everything snapped back. Music was playing, people talking, cleaning crews passing by, normal mall sounds. Where did you go? And I told her what happened, and she laughed and said, You've only been gone for like 10 minutes. And I looked at my phone, and it was 9:26. I left at 9:15. 11 minutes. But I swear I'd been trapped in that mall for hours. The weirdest part? The next day, security reviewed footage because my manager thought it was funny. On camera, I dropped off the envelope, then stood completely still in the middle of the hallway for 11 straight minutes. Not moving, not reacting, just staring at nothing. And right before I started moving again, the camera caught me suddenly turning my head, like something had whispered in my ear. Liminal spaces always creep me out. Long hallways, hallways that go on for forever, certain empty rooms. I always get an uneasy feeling in liminal spaces, but you let me know what you think about this story in the comments below.
Lincoln Park is the home to a lot of supernaturals. And the reason why it is home to a lot of supernaturals is because that land is crazy on the spiritual side. First, it was a holy, sacred burial ground for the Native Americans. Then the rich and the wealthy came in and dug up all of their bodies and then put their bodies there, turning it into a cemetery for the wealthy. And then the wealthy was like, you know what? We can make a whole lot of money out here instead of just putting dead bodies. So relocate. Then add in the fact that, Chicago is sitting right in the middle of its own Bermuda Triangle. And Lincoln Park is sitting near one of the ley lines. So, it's just seismic activity on the paranormal side. Now, this land is also special to the supernatural because it allows magic to flow freely through it. And with free flowing magic, there are multiple portals. Codwell's Lily Pond is one of them. You can sit back and say that you don't believe in Tartaria if you want to. I know better. And so does Cersei and her family. Cersei is a mermaid. Well, she's half mermaid, half siren. Her father is a merman, her mother is a siren. Cersei's father and mother was forced into an arranged marriage because it was supposed to be like, oh, the mermaids, sirens, we're going to have a peace treaty. We give up our firstborn children. Boom. There you go. But arranged marriages are never good for anybody because somewhere somebody is going to feel jaded and left the fuck out. Which is the reason why it was a whole battle between water protectors and a fucking wizard. You see, way back in the day when the stock market crashed, way back in the early 1900s, the world trade had collapsed. All the stockbrokers was losing their shit. All of them was losing their shit. This was the time when the stockbrokers was jumping out the goddamn windows of the skyscraper. Everybody was losing fortunes left and right, including Cersei's family. Because Cersei's family was losing their whole entire fortune, her grandpa was like, you know what? You finna go marry this man, and I don't want to hear shit about it. Who is the man? A fucking warlock. He a warlock from Germany. This man been sitting back. He been watching everybody's money. He been saving his money. He not giving his money out. And on top of that, we not gonna sit up here and lie. He's a fucking warlock. He was generating his own money. So when the stock market crash had happened, he came his ugly, greasy ass from Germany, came on over here and was like, yeah, y'all need a bailout. So I got the money for you. What you got for me? He visited a number of different families, and some of them took it, some of them didn't. One of them that did, Cersei's grandma. The warlock said, oh, she half mermaid, half siren? I'm gonna need her to be my wife. If you want me to bail y'all family out and the whole company and all this extra shit, she got to be my wife. I don't want to hear shit out. But see, here's the problem. Cersei was already dating a motherfucking vampire. And she wasn't just dating any old vampire. Remember the vampire I told y'all I had to be a nanny to? Yeah, he got siblings. It was one of his fucking brothers. So in Cersei's mind, she like, I already got my future set. Like, I don't know what the fuck y'all talking about. I need to help the family out because we already set. Like, we don't have to worry about none of this shit that this warlock is talking about. I'm finna marry this vamp. My grandpa didn't like that shit. He ain't like that shit at all. He The tradition is I marry y'all ass off, and I'm telling you, you finna go over here to this warlock. Cersei said, yeah, you got me fucked up, bitch. I'm staying on this motherfucking land with my man, and you kiss my ass. Warlock wasn't trying to have it. He wasn't trying to have none of that shit. He was like, you know what? You don't want to be my bride? Oh, okay. I'm going to get rid of the vampire. And I don't know why he thought that was a good idea. I really don't know why he thought that was a good idea because the vampire got numbers behind him, okay? He got money and he got real bodies. Like, his whole family is ready to ride or die for him, and you stand alone. Mr. Warlock man sat back, realized, you know what? I really can't go up against this vampire and his family. So, you know what? I'm gonna do whatever I can to win over Cersei. But he couldn't. Because my girl was like, yeah, that's my man. Like, you not trying to hear me. I'm not going nowhere from this man. The warlock ain't never been told no before. Like, he ain't never been told no before. In his 200 years of life, this man has always heard, yes, sir. Either willingly or forcibly. He heard yes. Never no. At some point, Cersei finally she was like, I'm done. I need to go talk to my grandpa. I need to understand who the fuck is this man and why is he going so hard. I need to understand why is it that you don't understand that I'm finna secure our future. She go to her grandpa. She trying to talk to him. Grandpa is hell-bent on Cersei marrying this fucking warlock. And she like, yeah, no, I need you to give me a real explanation. And he's like, well, he's gonna fund our life. And she was like, yeah. So with Mr. Vampire Man, what is your problem? He ain't got one. He just sitting there with because everything you saying don't fucking matter. Vampire Man is finna pay the dowry ×3. So everybody finna eat, everybody finna be good. And on top of that, he finna say the business. Like, why do we need to be with this fucking warlock so bad? Cersei grandpa, finally, he just break. Full on rage, throwing shit, flipping desks, throwing the damn, the computer chair out the fucking window. Why the fuck won't you listen to me? I'm your fucking grandpa. Roar! Cersei instantly knows something is wrong because don't nothing make her grandpa lose his cool. Like, the man don't cuss. he don't scream, he don't yell, and he for damn sure don't do all of this his shit. So Cersei, she sneak over on the wall, she pressed the panic button because she knows some shit is up. She knows some shit up. This ain't her grandpa. Guards, her daddy, some of her brothers, they all running into the office and they like, what the fuck is going on? And her grandpa turning around, what is going on? What's going on? You need to get your daughter under control. Tell this little motherfucker that she got to marry this man. I'm not trying to hear none of this shit. This bitch got her ass on her shoulder. Her daddy and her brothers is taken back because who the fuck? Pawpaw don't never talk like this. Pawpaw don't never act like this. They all sitting there looking at this man like, what the fuck? They make eye contact with Cersei. Cersei looking at them and we here, bitch. Who the fuck? Who the fuck is that? Her father take a step into the office and grandpa, he turned around. Don't step into my office. What you mean don't step into your office? I step in your office all the time. Why I can't step in your office right now? He say, didn't I tell you? Don't question me. Don't fucking question me. If I say don't step in my office, don't step in my office. You know, I'm stepping all in this bitch. Cersei father just get to stomping and screaming, reveal yourself, reveal yourself, reveal. Pawpaw over there going fucking crazy, clawing at his face. And Cersei brother like, what the fuck is that? Grandpa hit the floor behind the desk. Can't nobody see his ass, but you could hear him thrashing. Two of Cersei's brothers chime in with her daddy, get to stomping around. Reveal yourself, reveal yourself, reveal yourself. Whole time they don't know that it's a giant salt ring underneath the rug that they standing on, and they disrupting the ring, so it's fucking up the spell that Pawpaw put out. On some dramatic supervillain shit, Pawpaw pull himself up on the edge of the desk, and he ain't Pawpaw no more. He the goddamn wizard. Mr. Warlock Wizard Man don't realize that his whole disguise been faltered. So he's standing up there talking about, you don't know what you just did. You disobeyed me. You're gonna be disinherited. Everybody just standing there looking at his ass like, bitch, you don't know that we can see you? Mr. Wizard Man put his hands on his face and he could feel that it's out of shape. He looked like him. Cersei say, what the fuck is going on? Mr. Warlock Man said, I'm getting to Tartaria one way or another, and bitch, you gonna let me. Cersei baby brother come walking through the study, the office, and he got a big ass black grimoire in his hand. He get to reading off the wizard name. Come to find out that the wizard was actually banned from Tartaria and from the Mer City that's down in Lake Michigan because he was trying to use mermaid souls like it was a fucking power cord. Now the jig is up. The jig is fucking up. Mr. Wizard Warlock Man is standing there looking. He looking side to side. He look at Cersei, look at her daddy, look at all her brothers. Without a fucking word, that nigga turn around and jump out the fucking window. He a warlock, so he transfigured himself into a fucking bird. He flying off. Everybody see that he flying towards Caldwell's lily pond. Cersei and her people fucked up, standing there in shock because where the fuck is Grandpa at? Honey, you gonna lose your shit when you find out that Grandpa was in part 2. Go to the next story. Bang! Part 2 of how I found a mermaid's hole. Quick recap. We in Lincoln Park. We talking about Caldwell's Lily Pond. Caldwell's Lily Pond is protected by mermaids and sirens. Why? Because it's a portal. Where is it a portal to? I am not denying or confirming that Tartaria is a real place. Back in the early 1900s, there was a stock market crash. People was losing their shit. Stockbrokers was jumping out of windows, unalive their families was going crazy, selling off their firstborn. And a part of that whole selling off kinfolk thing was Cersei's family. Cersei grandpa knew that they was in trouble financially, and a warlock from Germany brought his ass over here with all his millions and millions of dollars and tricked Cersei's grandpa into saying, yeah, you gonna marry my granddaughter. Because men and greed, they can't stand being broke, can they? Cersei at her grandpa's house in his office, and he trying to tell her, girl, you ain't got no choice, you finna marry this warlock. And Cersei is like, yeah, you got me fucked up because I'm finna marry this vampire, and he finna pay everything that we need him to pay in order for our family to be good, and I'm gonna be happy in love. I'm not finna marry this fucking warlock. Grandpa started losing his shit, clawing at his face on some Mad-Eye Moody from Harry Potter shit. The man inside the pan transformed from grandpa into the warlock. Cersei baby brother come in the room, he got the grimoire, and he like, yeah, so we should have known more about this man, but we didn't know more about this man. Now we do. He ain't no good. Warlock man transform himself into a bird. He take off out the damn window. He flying towards Caldwell's Lily Pond. Before he leave out, he say he getting a Tartaria one way or another. Don't nobody know what the fuck none of that shit mean. But it's really dawning on them like, where the fuck is Grandpa at? Cersei mother and father, they on the phone. They calling all types of people from their council because what the fuck is really going on? And again, where's Grandpa? Cersei and two of her brothers got their faces planted in grimoires because they trying to figure out more about this man. They don't understand where he came from or nothing. And the reason why they don't understand nothing is because they grandpa ain't tell them shit. And now I'm finna rant a little bit because what the fuck is up with old people not telling people about their financial issues? Do y'all know how many people in this world, not just in Chicago, in the world, literally get blindsided by financial hardship after somebody died because the person who died cut a deal with somebody that the family didn't fucking know about? It's a real issue. And Cersei is like, we really into some shit because we really don't know what Grandpa signed over to this man. As they reading through all these books and stuff, they start hearing this little, like a little tink, like, you know how like you tapping on glass. They get to looking around, looking at all the windows. They don't see nothing outside the window, but they still hearing this little tink, 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 tink. What the fuck is going on? Cersei's sister just so happened to come through the door, right? The door is by the fireplace. She's standing by the mantelpiece. She hear the tinking loud as hell. She look up. On the mantelpiece is this little fish bowl. In the fish bowl is a seahorse. The damn warlock turned their grandpa into the fucking seahorse. Now this bring up a whole new slew of issues because if grandpa is a seahorse, that means he can't be the patriarch of the family. And if there ain't no patriarch of the family, that means that somebody could come in and do some shit to this leadership of the family. We don't need this right now. Every supernatural family who has status, they have to have somebody who is in a seat of power. And that person is a high fae member who is also a part of the high fae council. And if there is nobody that is there in that seat in the family, the council can appoint somebody to that family to take over. That's no bueno. That's no bueno. They already going through shit because they lost all their fucking money in the stock market drop off. And now you sitting up here talking about somebody could come in and take the rest of the money and the family under their name because grandpa not here? No, fuck this. Cersei called Mr. Vampire Man. She tell him this situation and he like, oh, okay, I'm gonna have my auntie come down. His auntie-in-law, she's a witch. And she good at breaking curses and spells and stuff like that. So he sent her down there to Cersei know this lady, she don't really like her because she know that she crooked as hell, but also she know that she not finna do shit against Mr. Vampire Man because Mr. Vampire Man don't give a damn. He offering everything for Cersei. They've been in love for way too long, and they was literally waiting for her next set of puberty in order for her to be considered an adult and she can actually marry off properly. So Miss Auntie-in-law, she get down there, right? She look at Grandpa and she instantly gets sick. She get to throwing up in every fucking. Auntie-in-law collapsed to the floor, right? They pull her out of the room. When they finally get a good look at her, she bleeding from her eyes, her nose, and her ears. In between coughs of blood, she say she can't do shit. He hacks Grandpa. Now Mr. Vampire Man is mad. He mad as fuck because his auntie just got hexed. He can't marry his girl because Grandpa was hexed. And oh boy, Mr. Warlock Man, he just flew up out of here and we don't know exactly what the fuck he finna do. Mr. Vampire Man and his family, they show up to Cersei's family house and they really talking about this because like a rogue warlock, that is never fucking good. It's never good, especially the ones from Germany. It's all bad. They all trying to sit up here and brainstorm to figure out what the hell this man really want. And then Cersei's youngest brother say, well, he did say he was trying to go to Tartaria. So maybe we should go there. Cersei daddy like, well, I mean, it don't really matter if he gets to the portal. Anybody could go to the portal, but you can't open it. You need the keeper's soul. And the keeper is here with us. So like, it don't really matter, do it. Now Cersei is confused because she like, what you mean you need the keeper's soul? I thought that Grandpa had the key and he could just open it. And her daddy like, no, the key is one of our souls. Like, you would have to take our life force, the energy, in order to open up the portal. We ain't tell you that. She like, what? I mean, Grandpa said that the key lived within us, but I didn't think that he meant in us. I thought like we the keepers of the key, the generations, we hold the power, not we are the power. Cersei's oldest brother is sitting there. He like, okay, so if the key is a soul and grandpa is the protector of the key, why would he turn grandpa into a seahorse and not just take him? Cersei's mother goes, and you wonder why we say Juliet is our key to our future. Cersei and all 8 of her siblings look at her mama and they like, wait, what? Now Cersei mama, she on her high queen shit. She roll her shoulders back, put her chin up. She says, I am titled the bearer of the portal for a reason. She said, I birthed the portal. It's my child. She's living and breathing with us today. Juliet is a key. Cersei, she's in utter shock because like she didn't think the bearer of portals meant that you literally, you gave birth to the portal. You gave, what the hell, woman? Okay, we need to find Juliet. Everybody get to looking around, can't nobody find Juliet. Big ass mansion, can't nobody find her. All the servants running through this bitch, everybody running around like a chicken with their head cut off, can't nobody find Juliet. In Juliet's room, there is a picture of a river with peace lilies all around the banking. Juliet is sitting in the middle of this painting. Yes, it's a beautiful painting, but it also doubles as a portal to another dimension. That's actually where they're from. As many times as Cersei has looked at this painting and has gone through this painting, one thing that she has never seen is the actual painting moving. Juliet is in the painting, moving. And that's not good. Juliet's mother put her hand on the painting and she says, my baby girl, reveal yourself to me. Across from that painting on the other wall is a actual portrait of Juliet. She calls out, Mommy dearest, I hear you. Everybody get to screaming and crying because if she in this painting, that means that she dead some damn well. Juliet proceeds to tell her family how her spirit is trapped here in this plane because she's heartbroken over her death. Her grandfather came in at the dead of night and killed her with a pillow. Traumatic death equals no rest for the spirit. She proceeds to tell them how she was trying to fight him off, but he took her life source, meaning her soul. When a soul and a spirit is disconnected, this then makes a ghost like a disembodied ghost. They can't do anything to you. They can't reach out and touch you, but you can feel their presence. If they had their soul attached, they can fuck some shit up. Now the family in the uproar for a different reason because Shorty's soul gone and the warlock gone. And you know what that means. You gotta go to part 3. Bye! Hey y'all, guess what? Boom boom is story time. Boom boom, Paranormal Chicago active. With Cat G, that's me. And guess what? They letting me keep my theme song. Quick recap. Cersei's is half mermaid, half siren. She being married off to a warlock from Germany. This is during the first real bad stock market crash. Her family finna lose all their shit. In the midst of this, grandpa was trying to figure out how to secure their family fortune. This warlock from Germany came over and was like, here go the money that you looking for. Just give me your granddaughter. And he was like, okay. But Cersei not having that because she a strong, independent woman and she choose who the fuck she want to fall in love with. And she did. She fell in love with a motherfucking vampire. And the vampire was finna pay the dowry ×3 in order to marry her. So she really confused because like she could save the family 3 times over with the vampire versus the war. Family going to confront grandpa because why the fuck did you make this deal when she's sitting up here dealing with the vampire and you know that? Well, out of nowhere, grandpa get to losing his shit and his skin get to peeling off. Kind of find out he was the warlock in disguise. The warlock really don't want Cersei's. Whole time he does to get the portal's key. The portal key is a mermaid soul. The mermaid soul in question is Juliet, Cersei's little sister. All hell break loose. The motherfucking warlock turned himself into a bird. He fly out the window. Now everybody realizing, okay, what the fuck is grandpa and what the fuck is Juliet? They take off looking for Juliet because like grandpa is important. He is important. He is the patriarch of the family. And if it ain't nobody sitting in that seat, then the council could come in and put in somebody else in his seat, take over the whole family, get to doing shit with the family that they don't really want to do. It's a whole thing. But Juliet, her soul is the key to the portal. Where the fuck is you at, Juliet? They go into Juliet's room, kind of find out that she is in the painting. If she's in the painting, that means that her soul and her spirit is split and she did some damn well. Juliet said that Grandpa killed her in the dead of night with a pillow, meaning he suffocated her. Now, from the shit that just popped off with the warlock, we know that Grandpa wasn't Grandpa. It was the warlock. And if she's sitting up here saying that Grandpa killed her last night, it wasn't Grandpa. That was the warlock. Fuck! Motherfucking warlock got a soul, Lord! Oh, Lord! He got the soul, Lord! Everybody trying to figure out how the fuck this even happened. Don't nobody know how it. The whole house is warded. The whole entire house. The house is warded by a high face. So how in the hell did the warlock get through the door? One of the gardeners come in, he crying. Fucked up. Snot-nosed booger face. He said that they had got a new garden hand a couple of weeks ago. And he didn't really rock with him. But everybody told him, like, you know, you really don't rock with people in the first place because you really think that this garden is yours. So we really don't think that you got a problem with him. We just think that you don't like nobody being in your garden that really don't belong to you. So we finna let this man work. Mr. Garden Gnome Man is toe the fuck up because he for real, he knew something was off with old boy. Mr. Garden Gnome Man said that when he first got there, he was asking a whole bunch of questions about Grandpa, but like that's normal because Grandpa is the patriarch. You want to make sure that you're doing everything that you can to please that man. But around the second week, that's when he started asking questions about Cersei's, and Mr. Garden Gnome Man was like, yeah, no, Cersei's ain't gonna never go for none of us, and on top of that, she in love with a vampire man. You better leave her alone. But the day before that he just up and vanished, he was asking questions about Juliet. Not once did this suspicious new gardener man ask any questions about Cersei's mother or father, her grandmother, any of her siblings. But out of nowhere, you grilling him about Juliet, the youngest in the house, the one who is super underage for any damn thing. But when the new garden man just vanished, Mr. Garden Gnome Man was like, okay, I ain't got to worry about him no more. So he didn't really think nothing about it until today. Now Juliet is dead. Her soul is fucking missing. They still don't know where the fuck Grandpa at. And Cersei is in full rage mode. Every supernatural family has a place in their house where they practice practical magic, whatever magic they see fit in their bloodline. Cersei, all her siblings, her mama, her daddy, and her grandma, they go to their room because now they got to do some real work. Cersei's oldest brother gets to the door first, twists the handle, open it, and the whole fucking thing explodes. Alarms, sirens, everything is going on. On top of the fire alarm sounds, you can hear T-bells going off, and those T-bells are actually alarms to the fairy realm. They pull themselves together, go down the hall to the door where the fairy realm is. As they go into the door, all hell is breaking. Because they are high fae, they are instantly let out into the high fae council, and literally people are running around like a chicken with their heads cut off. There's papers flying everywhere, notes flying through the air trying to get to where they need to get. At this point, it's all hands on deck because the portal is under attack. Apparently, the warlock been doing his homework, like a lot of homework. But what he did not know is that even though he has the key to the portal, he has to have another soul that unlocks it. 2-part protection steps was set up for situations and people just like this. Apparently, Mr. Warlock Man figured out about the 2-step process, but what he thought was he needed Juliet's soul and he needed Grandpa in order to unlock it. What he don't know is that it's Cersei who is the one who can unlock it. So his whole plan was to pop up with all this money, show that he could bail out the family as long as he was able to marry one of the girls. He was going after Cersei's because she would be the next in line for the throne. So that's a no-brainer. In the process of marrying Cersei, he would then be able to find out which mermaid actually has the soul, which is the key to the port. Again, whole time he was thinking all he had to do was get his hands on the soul and get his hands on Grandpa. It ain't work out like that. Which now brings us back to the question, where the hell is Grandpa? Cersei's grandmother has a special bond with Grandpa because of how their marriage was arranged. She forever is like a location beacon for Grandpa. When she puts her mind to it, she knows exactly where he is. On top of the fact that one of her powers is scribing. Of course she gonna find it. She get to looking for Grandpa, come to find out that Grandpa is still in the house, but not actually in the house. He's on the property. Under the pool house, to be exact. Y'all gotta understand these people got money, okay? They got money, and they have pool. With this pool, you got to have a whole bunch of mechanics and stuff for the pool. Well, because this pool is huge, you got to have a big ass place for all of the mechanics. In the basement of the pool house is where all the mechanics for the pool is. This is where Grandpa was being held. At this point, Grandpa is half past dead. Magic is literally the only thing that's keeping this man alive. Grandma messed up because she don't understand how the hell he even got to this point without her knowing. Once you understand all the magic that the warlock could do, trading places with somebody and being undetected, that's one of his specials. While the warlock was pretending to be a garden gnome, he was able to sneak in, poison the driver, make the driver become sick so that he was the one who stepped in and became the driver for the day for Grandpa. This is where he was able to get Grandpa alone, feed him an elixir that knocked him out, and he was able to trade places with him. Mr. Warlock Man said he was the man with a plan, honey. He was the man with a plan, and bitch, it worked a little bit too well. Now Cersei's brothers, they in full war mode. They little sister is dead. They grandpa is half dead, and their older sister was about to be a pawn in a huge ass scheme that was finna fuck up some shit for real, for real. Yeah. Nope. He got to go. When the brothers get to the warlock apartment, y'all, this is where shit really hit the fan, because all around the warlock's apartment, all over the walls, all over the tables, everything, it is literal diagrams of all of the supernatural families in the city of Chicago, around the city of Chicago, who has certain powers, who has the power to open up portals, all of this stuff. Like, he literally mapped out everything. They find out a little bit more about this warlock, and come to find out that this warlock was actually banished out of the coalition of magic a long ass time ago, because he was really on some I'm trying to be king of the world type shit. There are some supernaturals who live forever, but he was not one of them. And he was trying to do whatever he could to become one of them, which is against the law. That's how he got banished in the first damn place. His full exile came when he was trying to take over Tartaria. That's a place where only the most special people in supernaturals are able to go. Like, you got to be very high ranking or have something that really gives to the society of Tartaria for you to even be welcomed in. And Mr. Warlock Man ain't got none of it. In the midst of them looking through the warlock's apartment to figure out some sort of where he at, what he gonna do next, they begin to hear sobbing. Looking around the apartment, they find a little bitty fairy stuck in a little house. But she's not just any fairy, she's the keeper of history. Like, she writes it, she sees it. And if she is trapped here, what else is here? The answer to that is in part 4. Bye. Oh, good morning. It's story time. Boom, boom, it's story time. Boom, boom, paranormal Chicago activity with catchy. Hey y'all, this is part 4 of how I found the mermaid soul, and the people have spoken. No more flashbacks. If you want to know what happened in the last episode, go fucking watch. Okay, so boom. Cersei and her brothers went to the Magic Council because they had to go and talk to the Minister of Magic. The reason why they got to talk to the Minister of Magic is because they don't know what Grandpa is. Like, yeah, Grandma went and found Grandpa because she got like a little tracker spell on him. She found him turned into a seahorse or whatever. He in the basement. But see, she old, she frail, she fragile. She passed out. Didn't nobody know that Grandma found his ass? See, because didn't nobody know that Grandpa is actually still alive. He just a seahorse and Grandma passed out in the basement. Cersei had to go to the Magic Council so that she could initiate the Blue Majesty protocol. You see, a long time ago, when Cersei was first born, they knew it was going to be something special about her. Not only did they know that it was going to be something special about her, an oracle said she was going to be one of a kind. I mean, it ain't too many half mermaid, half sirens running around out here. Definitely not a lot of them with the powers that Cersei. Like, for real, Cersei still be finding powers that she got, and she's over 100 human years old. So yeah, her grandpa and her daddy knew that she was going to be a force to be reckoned with. And on top of that, they was going to need that force to be at the head of the family. But see, in magic families, they don't like women being in charge. Y'all know how the men do. Women can't rule anything. They're gonna shop too much. They'll spend up all the money on stupid stuff. They can't rule because they're too emotional. They'll start wars because of their emotions. Even though every war, every battle, any fucking thing was started because somebody told a man somewhere that he couldn't have some shit. But the women are the problem. The women are the problem, even though It's the men who be spending billions on bullshit like missiles and fighter jets. But you know what? I digress. Women are the problem. They can't rule that bullshit. Yeah, the same bullshit that we have to go through in the human world, the supernaturals got to go through that shit too. Cersei's daddy and her grandpappy was like, no, we not listening to none of this shit. First of all, Cersei is a goddamn genius. Literally, not figuratively. She's a fucking genius. And as of right now, it's seeming like her powers are unlimited. She got the gift of gab. And Honey Boo Boo shut down the fashion scene every single time she stepped out her bed. And her negotiating skills, like, what? The reason why their business was doing so good is because of Cersei and how she was handling these men in that motherfucking office. So Cersei's grandpa and her daddy decided to go to the Magic Council, and they was like, hey, remember how we did something for you? Well, now you got to do something for us. And the something for us is this Blue Majesty Protocol. I'm going to need for you to sign off on, if anything is to happen to me or my daddy, Cersei is the heir to the throne of our family. We don't want nobody thrown into the mix. We don't need nobody coming in and taking over shit. You know, like we know that Cersei got it under control, and we want her to be the one to man this ship. We don't need nothing else happening. And the Minister of Magic was like, you know what? I do owe you something, and I know for a fact that Cersei is that girl. She is that girl. So I'm going to sign the Blue Majesty Protocol. The Blue Majesty Protocol is supposed to come into effect whenever Cersei's grandpa or her father is done for. Well, Cersei's daddy got killed in a war. So it's just her and her grandpa that's in the seat of power. And see, because she don't know that grandpa is not done for yet, she did the right thing by going to start this, the Blue Majesty Protocol, because what she found in that warlock's apartment, baby, he got a plan on a plan on a plan on a plan, okay? She needs to get this ball rolling real fast, because if he's this detailed in his plan, ain't no telling how far he done got in the ministry trying to take over the family. So now Cersei's standing in front of the Minister of Magic, right? And she tell the Minister of Magic, I want to initiate the Blue Majesty Protocol. And the Minister of Magic sitting there looking at her like, the what? Cersei like, hello? Like, the Blue Majesty Protocol. What do you mean, the what? Like, let's get this ball rolling. And the minister sitting there, he like, I don't know what the fuck you talking about, girl. Instant red flag to Cersei and her brothers, because what the fuck you mean you don't know what the fuck the Blue Majesty Protocol is when you was the one who set it up with my grandpappy and my daddy? Instantly, Cersei talking to her brothers via telekinesis. Cersei send out the message, it's an imposter. Her brothers like, yep, we figured that. What you want us to do? She say, block all the exits. We finna handle this mother. Being real discreet, her brothers get to looking around the office while she talking to the Minister of Magic. But what the Minister of Magic is not seeing is that her brothers is actually placing themselves in a pentagram form. 4 brothers, 1 Cersei. That's a 5-point star. You should know that a pentagram is a powerful thing, but when you using bodies to power the pentagram, oh baby, you better watch the fuck out. The Minister of Magic is looking down into the drawers looking for a Blue Majesty Protocol. And he like, I don't see no foul on the Blue Majesty Protocol. She said, well, it wouldn't be down there to be in a safe. And the minister like, I think I know where I put my stuff at. And I'm more than positive I don't know what a damn Blue Majesty Protocol is. I think that you lying. What's going on? She said, why would I be lying? He said, because we all know that your grandpa is missing. She said, who is we all? He said, well, you did put an alert out already, so that's who is we all. She said, no, we ain't put out no alert. So who is we all? The minister turned and looked at her. He said, what you mean you didn't put out a report? She said, what you mean what I mean? Did you not just hear what the fuck I said? I ain't put out a damn report. I never once told anybody that my grandpa was gone. I didn't even tell you that my grandpa was gone. So what the fuck you talking about my grandpa gone? Now he's sweating. He talking about some, yes you did. You came in here and you said grandpa gone, you gotta initiate the Blue Majesty. She said, no, I never once said that my grandpa was gone. I told you that I needed to initiate the Blue Majesty Protocol, and you said, what is that? He's sweating, y'all. He's sweating. He trying to talk his way out of it. She not letting it happen. Cersei say, I'm trying to figure out how the hell you don't know what a Blue Majesty Protocol is when you literally wrote it out by hand. Like, you did it. You wrote it into effect. And then my daddy and my grandpa signed off on it. How you don't know about it? He said, yeah, no, I think somebody lied to you. She said, somebody lied to me. But I was sitting right here in this office when it happened. So ain't nobody lied to me. I seen it happen. He said, you know what, Cersei, I think right now, you're grieving. You're grieving, you stressed out, and you just grasping for air right now. And we know that this is all because your grandpa is gone. You're a little fearful. Y'all always been fearful for someone to come in and take over your family, but you know what? It's gonna be okay. I'm gonna appoint somebody good for your family. She said, why would you do that when you literally made the Blue Majesty protocol for that to never happen? You can see that this man, the cogs is turning because who the fuck? What do you mean? What is the Blue Majesty protocol? When did I sign this shit in? I don't know what the fuck she's talking about. But that's the problem. Because if you was really the minister, then you would know what the fuck is going on. The jig is up and you know. Cersei says, who the fuck are you? His face go white. He say, I'm the minister of magic. She said, no the fuck you not. You're not the minister of magic. Who are you? He jump up out the chair, flip the motherfucking backwards. I'm the minister of magic. I told you I'm the minister of magic. She say, no the fuck you not. You're not the minister of magic. Cersei steps forward and she pushes a button on the desk. To the untrained eye, it just looked like it's a little holder for little flags. But that's not what it is. It actually is a release button to open up a portion of the bookcase that opens up into a safe. Now Mr. Warlock man standing there shaking. He shooketh. Eyes finna pop out his head. They so fucking. He is confusion. What the fuck is that? When did that get? In the midst of his confusion, he not paying attention to the fact that Cersei and her brothers is closing in on his ass. She said if you was the real minister of magic, then you would know exactly what that is. It's because you and my father were the one who built this vault. Who are you? The minister looked back at her, but the frightened man who was standing there before ain't there. Now this is a man who is seething mad. He turning red from the neck up. He look at her and say, you fucking bitch. Nothing will keep me from that port. He throws something at the window behind him, busted out, turn into a fucking bird, and take off again. They want to go after him, but now it's an even bigger problem. Where the fuck is the minister of magic at? Baby, we have no clue. So go to part 5.
I need to tell you guys this ghost story. This story was sent into my email, and if you have any ghost stories, paranormal encounters, or scary stories that you want to share, you can send them to the email in my bio. If you've ever worked night shifts in a nursing home or an assisted living facility, you know how strange the building feels after midnight. And if you haven't, let me paint you a quick picture. During the day, it's loud. TVs playing, call lights ringing, families visiting, nurses talking. But at night, all of that changes. The halls get quiet, the lights are dimmed, and every sound suddenly feels out of place. I've worked as a nursing assistant for about 4 years now, almost entirely on night shift. Usually either 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. or 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. And over time, you get used to the routine. Halfway through my shift, at about 2 or 3 in the morning, most of the residents are asleep. And after I finish my rounds, I usually sit at the nurse's station doing charting with my coworkers, unless someone rings their call light for water or help going to the bathroom. It's normally a very peaceful environment, and I've found myself to become very fond of the night shift because of how quiet it is. At least, how quiet it used to be. During one of my overnight shifts a few months ago, it all changed. It was 3:15 in the morning. I remember this detail because after all of this happened, I checked the time over and over and over again, desperately trying to convince myself that it wasn't real. I had just finished rounds and taken out the trash. Me and a couple of coworkers were standing around the nurse's station talking quietly, trying not to wake anyone up. The hallway lights were low, giving everything the still yellow glow that normally felt comforting and cozy, but this night, I don't know, something just felt disturbed. One of my residents rang his call light. He was an older man who normally only called if he needed water or help adjusting in bed, so I walked down the hallway thinking nothing was out of the ordinary. I went into his room, turned on the light, and asked him what he needed, but instead of his usual answer came silence, and that's when I got a good look at his face. He looked terrified. He pointed toward the bathroom and whispered, "There's a woman in there screaming for help." I remember immediately assuming he was confused or dreaming. Some residents experience dementia or nighttime hallucinations. He pointed toward the bathroom again and said, "She needs someone to help her. Please help her." Still, though, I wasn't alarmed. The bathroom in his room connected his room to the room beside him, sort of like a Jack and Jill situation. One bathroom, but both rooms had access to it through their own doors in their own rooms. I reached beside his bed to switch off the call light, and then slowly walked toward the bathroom, assuming he was referring to another resident. The second I opened the door, I saw it. Another hand on the opposite bathroom door. A woman's arm. Pale skin, long red fingernails, gripping the edge of the door. And before I could react, the door slammed shut, hard. It slammed with enough force to shake the frame. Something wasn't right, and I was trying to figure out what had just happened. I thought maybe the woman in the other room had somehow gotten up. The resident on the other side had trouble walking, but maybe she'd managed to make it to the bathroom on her own. So I quickly stepped out of his room and went directly to hers. It was only a few steps. The trip to get to her room took less than 5 seconds at best, and when I entered her room, she was asleep. Still tucked into bed exactly how I had left her earlier. Absolutely no sign that she had managed to get up or even attempted at it. I just stood there, staring at her, thinking back to what I had just seen in the bathroom. I saw a forearm. I saw fingers with long red nails wrapped around that bathroom door. And there was absolutely no way that woman could have gotten from the bathroom back into her bed that quickly. I suddenly got this horrible feeling like me and the resident weren't alone in her room anymore. So I turned around and walked out, fast, and then faster. Then I started running. I ran all the way back to the nurse's station where my coworkers were standing. They could tell immediately that something was wrong because I was shaking, trying to explain what I'd seen. At first, they laughed nervously, trying to make logical explanations, but curiosity got the better of them. So 2 male aides and 3 female coworkers decided to walk back down that hallway and check it out for themselves. And as I watched them walk away, everything suddenly went quiet. Entirely too quiet for what was normal. I'm talking no machines beeping, no TVs, no calls, nothing. Then I felt something near my ear, like someone leaning in close to me. And before I could even turn my head, I heard a woman whisper in a soft, low, raspy voice, "Want to save them?" It was wet, like someone speaking through damaged lungs. The second she finished speaking, every single one of my coworkers came sprinting back down the hallway, terrified. One of them was even crying. And they were all yelling over each other, asking, "Did you hear that? Tell me that you heard that." Apparently, when they reached halfway down the hall, they all heard a woman scream. A terrible scream, loud and frantic and blood-curdling, like someone was being murdered. And immediately after the scream, they heard this deep, growling noise, animalistic and low and aggressive. One of my coworkers said it sounded like a wild animal trying to imitate a human voice. And after that, they ran. We all stayed huddled together at the nurse's station until almost 5 in the morning because nobody wanted to walk those halls alone anymore. I still work in healthcare, still on night shift, but ever since that night, I never answer a call light alone if it comes from that hallway after 3 in the morning.
Imagine seeing something like a La Jabless a few years ago and then you recently see it. We are back. We are back with another Trini Paranormal, Trini Scary Story, Trini Folklore for you today, and I have a story that was sent in to us, and it's quite terrifying, and I'm going to get right into it. So our follower said, Hey Carissa, about 10 years ago, my son and I were in a store in Prince Street, Port of Spain. There was a lady at the cashier who was trying to speak to my son. He was 6 years old at the time. When I intervened, she became agitated and started speaking in a different language. I immediately sprung into Jesus mode, and suddenly the lady started hopping backwards out of the store. But to my surprise, when we looked down, her dress got stuck. And what we saw was a grey-looking hoof. My son became very scared, but I kept praying and praying very loudly in the middle of the road while she kept hopping away. She then started to make signs with her hands in the air and shouted towards my son, K-I-L-L him, K-I-L-L him. That Friday evening was a whole movie scene. Cars and people came out the store to take in the view, and eventually she disappeared. I don't know what that was, but I sternly believe she is some sort of creature. She wore a long flowing dress and a wide straw hat. Recently, I saw her. She stopped at a maxi I was traveling in, but I told the driver don't pick her up because she isn't normal. When I mentioned the story to other people, they say they always see the evil lady traveling in a bus, so I strongly believe she's one of those things that you speak about. This sounds like a La Diablesse in broad daylight, and it makes me wonder, do folklore creatures or paranormal creatures adapt, or they are now adapting to modern day society? Are we walking amongst Lagos and La Diablesse and we don't know? Luckily, our follower saw, other people saw, and other people talk about this evil woman, and they even saw her hoof feet. So let me know, have you ever seen a La Diablesse, or do you believe that these folklore evil entities are now adapting into modern day society and they are walking amongst us? Let me know.
Let's read a scary story. This one is called The Perfect Wife. Trigger warning, this story has mentions of DV. Sarah woke up to the sound of her alarm. It was 4 a.m. in the morning. She rolled over to the other side of the bed, but Sam wasn't there. She used her hands to thrust herself upwards, but winced in pain, her hand automatically going to the left side of her stomach, where Sam had kicked her last night. She lifted her kurta only to see a purple bruise spreading across her skin. It was her fault. She knew Sam didn't like it when she talked back to him. Had she stayed quiet at dinner, none of this would have happened. At least that's what she told herself each time. She got up, determined not to make any more mistakes today. After all, it was Sam's birthday today. Everything had to be perfect. She got ready and walked towards the wardrobe. She looked at all the half-sleeve dresses that were pushed towards the side of her closet, and her hand automatically drifted towards a bright yellow dress, the one she wore when Sam took her out for their first anniversary. She remembered how happy she felt when he told her how beautiful she looked, as he brushed a strand of her hair past her face. She often wondered what went wrong. She snapped back into reality and picked a dark hoodie with long sleeves, as it was the only thing that could cover the bruises scattered all over her arms. She went into the living room, quietly arranging the disheveled room and picking up the empty alcohol bottles scattered all over the floor. Sam hated messes. She had learned this loud and clear when she accidentally spilled his coffee. The 3 stitch marks just above her eyebrows served as a permanent reminder. Just then her phone buzzed. 13 missed calls from her brother asking where she was. She didn't reply and slipped the phone into her hoodie. Sam didn't like her speaking to her family. "You twist every argument to make me seem like the villain," she remembered him saying. She snatched her phone mid-conversation and threw it across the room. But he was right. She was the one who made him angry. Had she learned to shut up and not question him, none of this would have happened. Sam wasn't always like this. There was a time when he would bring her flowers on his way home from work and hold her hand while they crossed the road. She firmly believed that man was still there, the man who truly loved her, and she could bring him back if she tried hard enough. Yes, she could do it. Sarah spent the remaining part of the day tirelessly scrubbing the entire house clean, hanging streamers and making flower arrangements. She had even managed to bake a cake, chocolate with vanilla frosting, Sam's favorite. She went back to her room to get ready to surprise him. She meticulously covered the array of bruises on her face and neck with concealer. Everything had to be perfect today. Carefully decorated the cake with flowers and topped it with candles. That's when she heard the door handle turn. She walked towards the living room, holding the cake in her hands with a smile plastered on her face in an attempt to mask her lingering uncertainty. Everything had to be perfect. As she walked to surprise Sam, she suddenly froze. She saw a trail of blood leading from the hallway towards the back door of the house. A chill ran down her spine, and she slowly followed the trail, her hands trembling while she desperately attempted not to drop the cake. The back door stood ajar. Through the narrow gap, she saw Sam dragging something covered in a large, dark plastic covering across the floor. His clothes were stained with something dark, and a look of absolute terror was plastered on his face, and he loaded the back bag into the trunk of his car. Suddenly, a hand slipped out. Sarah's stomach churned violently as the cake dropped out of her hands. Her hands covered her mouth in an attempt to suppress the sob as tears rolled down her face. Sarah staggered farther towards the door, but her legs gave out and she fell on the floor. The hand was covered with bruises she recognized. That's when the memories came rushing back. Sam yelling, her voice trembling as she apologized to him again and again, the smell of alcohol on his breath, a violent shove, her head hitting the side of the dining table, the warm blood running down her face. Sarah stumbled backwards, her body as cold as ice, as the realization hit her, the pain, the bruises, the exhaustion. None of it had happened this morning, because this morning had never happened. Outside, Sam shoved her hand back into the plastic bag and slammed the trunk shut. The cake, which she had so meticulously baked, was now squished beyond recognition. Everything had to be perfect. The phrase slowly repeated in her head as Sam drove away, disappearing into the darkness. That was a very chilling story. Let me know what you thought, and if you have any scary stories of your own that you'd like me to read, let me know.
Would I be a terrible wife if I didn't want any kids? Look, I never wanted kids, okay? That was my husband. I remember after giving birth to my son, he held him and said, his name will be Mason because he's my son. I thought he was so funny. Look, I only married him because, I'm not getting any younger, and he was incredibly desperate and rich. I wasn't excited about raising the little devil, but I was excited about being a stay-at-home mom. After all, going to work sucked. So, about after 5 years of raising the little devil, I kind of had a quarter-life crisis. Like, life just seemed too bleak. That's when I had the affair. And yeah, it was with his brother, and that's like a bad thing to do, but God, it was thrilling. Until Mason walked in on us one time. And I couldn't allow him to tell my husband, everything was in his name. I didn't even have a single dollar. So all it would take was him saying, oh, why was mommy wrestling with Uncle Randy? Yeah, my life would be over. Honestly, it was a lot easier to kill Mason than I thought it would be. Kids will just eat anything that you give them, including poison. So this would be better for everyone. But there was just one little hiccup. The damn kid was haunting me. Well, actually, that might be a stretch, like haunting, because the kid's ghost didn't even know that he was dead. Dumbass. The kid just mostly played in his room, doing little cartwheels and whatever. But he did ask me when he was going to start kindergarten, and I told him soon. He also rubbed his tummy and asked why it hurt, and I just told him that you're a little sick, but you'll get better. And obviously I realized that this is a major problem for me, because what if he decided to appear to my husband and spill his guts? I don't know how this whole ghost thing worked, but it had to be possible, right? So I just tried to keep him distracted and play the loving mother. I planted ideas in his head too, that his father was cruel and shouldn't talk to him. I would say things like, if you bother daddy, then he'll you. And hey, it's worked out so far, okay? It's been a whole year since he died, and my husband was none the wiser. Anyway, so tonight I tucked Mason into the bed. Well, the best that you can tuck in a ghost. And give his forehead a little kiss. Then I went to the master bedroom and prepared to play the grieving wife. Because my husband didn't take Mason's death well, obviously. But, I hope he'll get over it soon, because I need a vacation. Maybe a cruise. So I entered the room, and he was sitting on the bed, his head in his hands, and he said, I can't believe this. So I asked, believe what? And he said, it's been a whole year. And I said, I know, baby, I miss Mason too. Then he said, no, how do you never remember? Remember what? He said, it's been a year since I discovered what you did. A year since you. Why are you still here? Why won't you leave me alone?
Might have known the story of real-life boogeyman.
Let's read a spooky, a glitch in the Matrix story. This one is called A Glitch in the Matrix with Two Witnesses. This happened a few months ago, and I'll try to describe it in great detail because after retelling this story many times, absolutely no natural explanation fits, and everything was witnessed by two people at the same time. I met up with a cousin to have a beer at a Friday gathering, a weekly event that always gets very crowded where people sit at tables and chairs spread across the square and frequently go into the surrounding bars to buy drinks or use the bathroom. We stayed talking from around 8:30 p.m. until 11:30 p.m. We literally drank 2 beers each, shared a plate of chicken bites, and nothing else before deciding to leave. I want to emphasize what we consumed to make it clear that we were not drunk or under the influence of any kind. Before walking back, we decided to use the restroom, but the bar we were standing in front of was too crowded, so we decided to go into the bar next door. That's when the whole anomaly began. We entered the bar and it was completely empty. I don't mean not many people, I mean there wasn't even a bartender, no customers, no human being at all. The bar was open and fully lit as normal. There was simply nobody there. We went to the restroom in the back, which had only stalls and sinks. My cousin entered the first stall and I entered the second. During the first few minutes we were in there, I found it strange that my cousin kept knocking against the divider between the stalls, almost as if he were leaning on it, but nothing beyond that. When I came out to wash my hands, there was also a man washing his hands at the sink in front of the first stall. I stood next to him, looked at him in the eyes, and he looked at me directly in the eyes as well. I had never seen that person in my life. He was an older man, probably around 50 or 60 years old, with a very serious expression, but otherwise just an ordinary person in a public restroom. I looked toward the first stall where I had seen my cousin enter, and it was empty. I found it strange that he had already left, but again, nothing impossible. I just assumed he was waiting for me outside the bar. I saw the strange man finish washing his hands and walk out. I had finished too and left in the same direction. That's when I noticed he was wearing a green waistband on his back, identical to my cousin's. The bar was still completely empty. I watched the man walk to the sidewalk and stop as though he were waiting for someone. I also walked out to the sidewalk and once again stopped beside this person. I had no idea who he was. Again, we looked directly into each other's eyes with absolutely no sign of recognition from either side. I looked around for my cousin. Since I had left the bar, there were now lots of people on the sidewalk. I walked around a bit looking for him, but nothing. I thought, that's impossible. He must still be in the restroom. So I went back into the bar to look for him. As I walked towards the restroom, while the bar remained completely empty, I felt my phone vibrate and saw it was my cousin calling me. Obviously, I answered immediately and asked where he was. Literally, while he was responding, I turned around to look once again toward the sidewalk, and exactly where the strange man had been standing 1 second earlier, there was my cousin, standing in the same position, wearing the same green waist bag. We looked at each other and instantly recognized one another, so I walked back outside the bar. The moment we met, we almost simultaneously asked, "What the hell just happened?" That's when he told me his version of events we had just experienced. His version was very similar to mine, with some extremely important differences. He said he had not been banging on the stall divider at all, quite the opposite. He had gone into the restroom, finished quickly, and had been waiting outside the restroom, but still inside the empty bar, for me for more than 10 minutes. He also saw a strange man washing his hands next to him. However, according to him, the man wasn't just older, his face was deformed, and in his words, he had an incredibly heavy energy, as though he wanted to hurt someone. He saw this strange man follow him out of the restroom and recognized parts of his clothing as being what I was wearing, just like I had only recognized the green waistband. He recognized my black t-shirt. When he saw the deformed man walk back into the bar, he decided to call me. According to him, he then witnessed almost a metamorphosis. As the man turned around, he saw changes in posture, shape, and face, and by this time the figure fully turned around. It was me standing there. After that, we simply met up and walked towards his house, where I would call an Uber. Everything was completely normal, as if nothing had happened. My cousin and I are both very skeptical people. He told me he spent days afterwards feeling genuinely terrified, and I still have no reasonable explanation for what happened. Let me know what you think about that, what you think happened, and as always, if you have any spooky stories, let me know.
If you saw this TikTok, you'd probably think, okay, yeah, normal video, nothing stands out about it, but then you learn the backstory behind it and what's happening in just the other room as this girl is deciding to record this TikTok, and it's evil. There's no other word for it. It's literally vile, pure evil. Nicola Priest was a teenager living in the UK with her mom, sister, and her stepdad. They were living just outside of Birmingham, and she was living a life of a typical girl her age. She was posting on social media, doing her makeup, going out with her friends. She had an active TikTok profile where she would post videos of herself dancing, makeup tutorials, just little clips of her everyday life, but her entire world changed when she found out that she was pregnant at 17 years old. Nicola gave birth to a baby girl in 2017, and she named her Kaylee Jade priest. The father was not in the picture, so of course the baby lived in the same house as Nicola and her family, and Kaylee was the cutest little girl. Anyone who met her outside of the family would tell you that she was just the sweetest little girl. On social media, specifically on TikTok, Nicola began posting videos of her daughter. The two of them would do dances together, they would play, they would hang out, and if you watched the videos, you would probably think, oh cute, mother, daughter, so sweet. Wrong. Nicola was the worst mom because she could not have cared any less about her daughter if she tried. Nicola never bathed her, fed her, changed her diapers, didn't play with her. She honestly hardly even talked to her, and when she did spend time with her, it was only because she had to. Luckily for baby Kaylee, Nicola's mom and sister stepped up to take care of her. They did absolutely everything in their power to raise her and care for her and give her everything that a baby needs. So Kaylee was taken care of, but not by Nicola in the slightest. When Nicola had her, she pretty much just completely disregarded her, or she was yelling at her or punishing her, all while making two other things her priorities: social media and boys. Nicola was also not a great daughter. She never listened to her mom. She went out, she would leave Kaylee at home, very much so prioritizing hanging out with random boys and doing things that I guess she considered to be fun. By 2019, Nicola fell pregnant again, and she gave birth to now her second child sometime that year. The father was her boyfriend at the time, a guy called Daniel, and Daniel was a good guy. He was excited to become a dad. He loved being able to be in Kaylee's life. He had good intentions, and he definitely cared significantly more for Kaylee than Nicola ever did. At some point throughout their relationship, Nicola ends up getting in a really bad fight with her mom, and I think her sister as well, because they're just trying to tell her to treat Kaylee like a toddler should be treated, but Nicola just refused to listen. She got super defensive. She moved out. She took Kaylee with her and then told her family members, aka mom and sister, that they would never see her again. She moved in with Daniel into his family's house, and the two of them later on got their own apartment. But getting into that fight with her mom and her sister was terrible because they were two out of the three people who seemed to actually care and love Kaylee. But the third person was Daniel, so there was still a little bit of hope in the air that even though Kaylee sadly would no longer be allowed to see her aunt and her grandma, she still had Daniel and his family. But sadly, that would not last long either, because being in a relationship with someone like Nicola, who pretty much only cares about herself, wasn't something that Daniel could see for himself long term. As much as he cared for Kaylee, I think he realized that being with Nicola was just too much. I think I said 2019 earlier, but the baby was born in 2020. So after their baby was born in 2020, they broke up, and Daniel did whatever he could to still provide and still be in the baby's life, even when him and Nicola were completely over. He let Nicola and Kaylee stay at the apartment, and he moved back in with his family, but they worked out an agreement in which Daniel would take the baby on the weekends and Nicola would have him on weekdays. But I told you that one of Nicola's biggest priorities was boys, so it didn't take long for her to jump into a new relationship. In 2020, Nicola got into a relationship with Callum Redfern, a 21-year-old guy who she had known for a little bit and one that she was reportedly infatuated with. Callum, not a good guy. He was reckless, he was selfish, had severe anger issues. Also, not on the same page at all as Nicola in regards to their relationship, really. Well, like, it was very much so a relationship in her eyes. She was very much, my man, you are mine, let's be together forever. I will give you whatever you want. And he was very much, a man has needs, you meet my needs, but that's about the only thing that you do for me. So whatever thing they had to him was very much physical versus in Nicola's eyes was very much emotional. But Callum, also great at not caring, so he pretty much just led Nicola on, let her believe whatever she wanted to believe. So their relationship was weird and the opposite of healthy, but it was different in the way that Nicola now not only cared about herself, she actually cared a lot about Callum. Yet that meant that Kaylee, her 3-year-old daughter, got even less attention from her, if that's even possible. Not only did Nicola not care about Kaylee, she often yelled at her, she called her names, she would punish her. I mean, you would think that this 3-year-old little girl was her biggest enemy by the way that she treated her. Add to that, Callum and his selfishness and his anger issues, it was quite the perfect recipe for disaster. Neighbors living below Nicola's apartment at times heard loud noises coming from upstairs, followed by Kaylee crying. On one occasion, a neighbor allegedly heard Kaylee crying, and Nicola say afterwards, quote, "I'll just say that she fell off the bed," end quote. Things in that apartment were bad, much worse than anyone could have ever imagined. Later on, text messages were revealed that showed just how angry Nicola always was at Kaylee, the most innocent little girl who just wanted to be loved and cared for by her own mother. In one exchange, Nicola texted Callum, quote, "I'm gonna her because she keeps leaving the living room or going in the kitchen, so I've hit her and smacked her for going to the bathroom in her nappy," end quote. Callum's response to that was, quote, "Good, give her one from me." Nicola replied to that saying, "I will, babe." Just days after those text messages, the horrible events of today's case would occur. The last full day of Kaylee's life began ordinarily enough. On Saturday, August 8th of 2020, CCTV cameras recorded Nicola and Kaylee leaving their apartment. And as per usual, Nicola seems extremely uninterested in her. Kaylee is looking at her the entire time. Nicola does not look at her once, completely ignoring her. She walks in front of Kaylee, keeping her distance with almost no physical or verbal interaction between the two of them the entire time. When they returned back home, Kaylee appeared well, walking, talking, moving normally. Oh, and also the baby this weekend was with Daniel, so it was only Nicola, Callum, and Kaylee now at their apartment. At around 7 p.m. that night, Kaylee was put to bed. Nicola and Callum were in the living room along with a friend that Callum had over, but like many children her age, Kaylee did not want to go to sleep. She wanted to stay up. She wanted to play, so she began to cry, calling out, wanting to be let out of her room. But Nicola and Callum, they wanted to be intimate with each other right then and there. Why not? Your daughter is literally crying out for you, and there's another person, you have a friend over too. But they started kissing or whatever, but Kaylee was still crying, and they got so incredibly angry and irritated, they both stopped what they were doing. They entered Kaylee's bedroom and they punished her physically without holding back for interrupting them. Afterwards, they leave her in her room. They go back to doing whatever they were doing until they were done, and then Callum, along with his friend, leave the apartment completely. So now it's just Kaylee who's locked in her bedroom and her mom, Nicola. Nicola goes back into Kaylee's room. She sees that she is very clearly, obviously not okay because of everything that they did to her, sees that she is throwing up uncontrollably. 3 years old, by the way, and what does she do? She closes the door and she gets on her phone, completely and absolutely ignoring the horrible state that Kaylee was in. What exactly happened in that apartment has never been fully established because both Nicola and Callum ended up blaming each other entirely, but the injuries that Kaylee sustained tell us enough. Kaylee had catastrophic injuries to her chest and abdomen, a torn intestine, fractured ribs, a fractured sternum, and a deflated lung. Expert witnesses described the injuries as producing the type of damage usually seen as the result of a high-speed car crash. Other experts later told the court that it was also comparable to injuries that a child might suffer from falling approximately 30 feet onto concrete. That night, those are the injuries that Kaylee had and felt and was going through, left alone in her bedroom, while her mom, 22-year-old Nicola, was in the living room. She was texting Callum that she loved him, that it was so nice to see him, and then, out of boredom, I guess, Nicola picks up her phone and she starts making TikToks. Yep, she props up her phone and she starts doing dances. No care in the world. And then she just goes to her bedroom and eventually falls asleep. Kaylee Jade spent the night in that condition, using every last bit of energy that she had to try and survive. She was alone. She was slowly giving up. Her little body couldn't handle it, and no one called for help. It was not until the following day, August 9th of 2020, at around 11 a.m., Nicola Priest called an ambulance for her daughter. She calls and says that she thinks that her daughter fell and hit her head, that she's not breathing, and that she's turning blue. The operator on the phone tells her to do CPR. She says that she's doing CPR and that it's not working. Later we find out she never tried to do CPR, and Kaylee was already gone by the time the ambulance arrived. There were a total of 68 injuries on her body, most of which were caused that night, but some dated back 2 months earlier. Medical staff was able to determine that because of the way that they looked, meaning that this awful treatment of Kaylee had been going on for weeks, months before that final night. Authorities arrested both Nicola Priest and Callum Redfern, and you will not be shocked to hear that anything and everything Nicola told authorities were lies. She was full of fake stories, attempting to make everything seem like it was an accident, but it was obvious to any person that saw her and spoke to her that she was a mother who did not in the slightest care about her daughter. Callum tried claiming that he wasn't even in the apartment, that he didn't stay the night there that night, and that he knew nothing, which is true, but he was fully responsible as well. Both of them fully denying any responsibility, and eventually both of them fully turning on each other. They must have realized, I guess, that authorities were not buying into their lies, so instead they pointed the finger of blame entirely at each other. When asked how Kaylee's passing had affected him, Callum only responded with, quote, "It's not my child, it's not really affected me," end quote. I'm happy to say that when they did eventually go to trial, the jury wasn't believing anything that they were saying. CCTV footage, witness testimony, text message records, and reports from several medical experts played a crucial role in proving the case. The prosecution's argument was pretty straightforward that on the night of August 8th, both defendants were alone with Kaylee when she sustained her fatal injuries. Both had the means, the motive, and the opportunity. Both had documented history of this kind of behavior towards her, and neither called for help. On August 5th of 2021, the jury convicted both Nicola Priest and Callum Redfern on the manslaughter of Kaylee Jade Priest. They were found not guilty of murder because of a lack of evidence, because they were unable to determine exactly who did what and what part they played. They were found not guilty of murder, but instead guilty of manslaughter, which is crazy to me, and I'm sure to many of you as well. Nicola was also found guilty of a separate charge relating to Kaylee's older injuries. She was sentenced to only 15 years in prison for manslaughter and 3 years for the second charge, and Callum was sentenced to only 14 years. When Nicola's mom, Kaylee's grandmother, found out, she was absolutely shattered. As you can imagine, she had been the only one, along with Nicola's sister, that ever tried to raise the alarm on how bad, how awful of a mother Nicola was, and they had been the only ones that had loved Kaylee since the moment she was born. This is a statement from her, quote, "I could never stop staring at that smile on her beautiful face. I loved every moment watching her develop to nearly school age. Kaylee J deserved to show the world who she could have been and what greatness she could have brought to this world. Nanny will forever hold you in her heart," end quote. Yeah, I really have no words. Also baffled at the sentence that they got. But that is all for me today. Thank you for spending time with me today and for listening to little Kaylee's story. I hope you guys are having the best day. If not, go do something to make it the best day. Make somebody happy, and I will see you in my next video. That's a kiss on the forehead to every single one of you.